Hey everyone, Shadow Rockets here, and today I have a self-help video for you, as it is Monday, and I am sticking with that schedule. Now, as much as I'd like to sound, very, wow, I need to use my words, sound very happy and just positive, in this topic, I feel like it deserves a more serious note, and that is because this topic is going to be depression or clinical depression. And now, this is a mood disorder causing a persistent feeling of sadness and a general loss of interest. It affects more than 3 million people per year, and it generally starts after the age of 14. It is seen from 3 to 13, but not nearly as widespread. And the causes range from brain chemistry to brain geometry to even life events. So I kind of want to get into some of the symptoms for you. Obviously, I think that people will have a pretty solid idea. But like I said before, it is a persistent feeling of sadness or loss of interest. It can lead to so many just emotional and physical conditions. But the people that have major depression or clinical depression should or may experience in their mood maybe changes such as they'll experience apathy, boredom, general discontent, guilt, hopelessness, inability to feel pleasure, loneliness, loss of interest, mood swings, sadness, or emotional distress. Sorry, my words today, I just can't even. As far as a cognitive experience goes, you'll experience a lack of concentration, slowness in activity or thought, or even thoughts of suicide in some extreme cases, or maybe not even extreme cases. I don't want to say that one case of depression is more extreme than another, because they all affect us differently. But as far as behavioral symptoms, you'll see agitation, excessive crying, irritability, self-harm, or social isolation. For sleep, you'll sense early awakening, excess sleepiness, insomnia, restless sleep, so obviously not getting very much sleep, I could say. As far as psychological experiences go, you'll see depression, obviously, anxiety, or repeatedly going over thoughts. Now, anxiety I'm not really going to touch because I kind of want to go into that next week, possibly. Anxiety might be one that I'd talk about, so we're not really going to go into that. But repeatedly going over thoughts really interests me because I tend to go over my thoughts a lot, but that's just, I feel like they mean when you're sitting in bed at night thinking of all of the conversations that could have went wrong, right? I know we all do that from time to time, but not necessarily just moving on like we do most of the time, but just dwelling on them. So that's really odd for me to have read that. As far as your whole body goes, like your physical just body, you'll experience excessive hunger, fatigue, or even loss of appetite. So essentially any of the extremes, weight gain, or loss. So people take it differently. I realize that weight gain or loss, that's you're either one or the other, Shadowrock, because you can't do both. So that's true, but we're talking noticeable here, like noticeable gain or noticeable loss. Whereas we tend to all stick to the same amount of weight over time or over short periods of time, you'll see some people's weight change very dramatically, very quickly, and that could be a bad sign of depression right there. Another common or other common experiences you'll find are poor appetite, restlessness, or even substance abuse. Don't do drugs. That's never gonna help. It's never gonna do anything for you. Actually, I mean, it's never have drugs helped someone except for responsibly taking drugs that have been assigned to you to treat a certain illness. So there are drugs that you can take for depression, but overdosing on those is the opposite of what you want to do, obviously. So going back into the causes of depression, I'd like to talk about how depression can be genetic. It can also, however, be just biological, environmental, or psychological. Any combination of those. It could just be the environment that you're in, rainy, cloudy, just nighttime. I know a lot of people there's a type of depression where during the wintertime people experience it, and we'll get into the types later, but it's just people don't see enough sunlight and they get depressed because of that. And so you could just need to see sunlight. That's very interesting. I love these different, I guess, ways of contracting depression. It's a very odd illness, and I feel like we all experience it at some point in time in our life, at least minute depression. However, depressive illnesses are disorders of the brain. Obviously, brain imaging technologies such as magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, have shown that the brains of people who have depression look different than those without depression. However, these images don't reveal why depression has occurred, and they can't be used to diagnose depression. So while that's interesting, it really doesn't do very much other than we know that they're different. However, the parts of the brain involved in mood, thinking, sleep, appetite, and behavior do appear different. So that's kind of cool. That's a physical or maybe even genetic factor there of a cause of depression. Like I said, genetic. Some types of depression can run in families. However, depression can occur in people without family histories of depression as well. So be sure, because just because your parents have depression or have had depression doesn't mean you're going to get it. And it also doesn't mean that just because they have it, you don't have it. So don't be afraid to tell somebody. I feel like that is going to be a major statement that I make with these help videos, is tell someone. There's never a problem to tell someone that something is wrong, that you're experiencing something wrong. All they can do is say either no, you don't have anything wrong, or they'll be able to help you. So, and many people don't seek treatment with depression, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem. You can have medication, psychotherapy, and other awesome methods that I really want to get into to talk about today. So moving ever onward, I know I'm kind of breezing through all of this, but there are some really cool treatments that I want to talk about, mainly because I have a thing for physics, so those are kind of interesting. But as far as the types of depression, you have major depression, which is severe symptoms that interfere with your ability to work, sleep, study, eat, and generally just enjoy your life. These episodes can occur only once in a person's lifetime, but more often a person has several episodes. So if you just have one of these, this is just why you could experience depression just one time in your life. I mean, everyone probably experiences depression in their life at some point in time, and it may just be once, and so that's okay. Don't be afraid to tell someone. Just because you're a little under the weather, to you, it could be a serious problem. However, there is another kind called persistent depressive disorder, which is defined as a depressed mood that lasts for at least 2 years. A person diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder may have episodes of major depression along with periods of less severe symptoms, but these symptoms must last for 2 years. That's pretty extreme for depression to last 2 years, but that is why it falls under its own category. But some forms of depression are slightly different or may develop under unique circumstances. These include psychotic depression, postpartum depression, or seasonal affective disorder, which is also called SAD, and that is the onset of depression during winter months when there's less natural sunlight. And these depressions generally lift during spring and summer. So that's kind of the one that I was talking about before. It's kind of interesting, but you can still get antidepressant medication and psychotherapy. So don't think that just because it's the bad time of the year or whatever, it's dreary outside, don't think that you don't deserve treatment for that. Also, there's bipolar disorder, which is called manic depressive illness. It's not as common as major depression or persistent depressive disorder, but bipolar disorder is characterized by cycling mood changes from extreme highs, mania, to extreme lows or depression. So it kind of is a type of depression, but it kind of goes along with depression. As far as psychotic and postpartum depression, psychotic depression occurs when a person has severe depression plus some form of psychosis, such as having disturbing false beliefs or a break with reality delusions, or hearing or seeing upsetting things that others cannot hear or see, or hallucinations. Postpartum depression is more serious than the baby blues that many women experience after giving birth, but it's women are experiencing severe hormonal and physical changes when you're caring for this newborn, It can be overwhelming, and 10 to 15% of women experience postpartum depression after giving birth. So, ladies, please, please, please seek help if this is a problem for you. Don't just put it under the rug for baby blues or whatever. Um, just tell someone. Tell someone. That's a huge. Jeez, I can't get over the fact. Maybe I have just such high self-esteem that I always want to tell someone if something's wrong. I don't know. I do want to talk. I want to go in a little bit more detail before I talk about fixes or treatments for depression, or just the crazy treatments, and not crazy as in bad, but crazy as in very interesting. I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the symptoms, and signs and symptoms do include persistent, sad, anxious, or empty feelings, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or helplessness, irritability, restlessness, loss of interest in activities or hobbies once pleasurable, including sex, fatigue and decreased energy, difficulty concentrating, remembering details, and making decisions, insomnia, early morning wakefulness, or excessive sleeping, which would kind of be a nice thing, right? Overeating or appetite loss, thoughts of suicide or suicidal attempts, aches or pains, headaches, cramps, or digestive problems that do not ease with treatment. So if you are experiencing any of these things or a combination of these things, again, please seek treatment. It is very important. You are a vital part of the human race. We all contribute our own things to society. Let's keep that going. Now, as far as treatments go, there are many treatments. You can have prescriptions or therapies, and there's so many. I don't even want to go down the list of prescriptions. There's just a ton of them. Therapies and lifestyle changes. You can have psychoeducation, therapies, electroconvulsive therapy, psychotherapy, behavioral therapy, family therapy, light therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. Just so many things. You can see your specialist, your PCP, geriatrician, clinical psychologist, psychiatrist. There's so many people that specialize in this. However, I want to focus on two main types of treatment, and that is electroconvulsive therapy and transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. Now, electroconvulsive therapy is formerly known as electroshock therapy or shock treatment, and seizures are electrically induced in patients to provide relief from psychiatric illnesses. Now, while these do still happen, they're very less common. It's not very common at all, or at least not in modern science, which is kind of nice because it sounds kind of scary, but a round of it is effective for about 50% of people with treatment-resistant major depressive disorder, so, or whether it be unipolar or bipolar. So follow-up treatment is poorly studied, but about half of the people who respond relapse within 12 months. So as you can see, it works for the time being for half of the people, and so it's just dangerous. I don't know. It was very interesting for me, though, to stimulate the brain with electric shocks, which is why I also found transcranial magnetic stimulation very interesting. Now, while this doesn't shock you, it does send not electromagnetic, well, kind of. It sends magnetic waves via insulated coil through your brain to stimulate parts of the brain that trigger happy thoughts, or stimulate, I guess, the happy locations, right? So it's practiced in Johns Hopkins, so it's kind of a big deal, and I like this. I like this idea because it uses physics. While we don't completely understand the brain and the function of everything within the brain, I feel that this is a step towards using what we do know, as opposed to just kind of saying, oh, well, we don't know anything, but it does send electric shocks through your brain to stimulate nerves and whatnot. This uses that. This uses those electromagnetic waves to stimulate the area of the brain that play a role in mood regulation, or that plays roles in mood regulation. So that is very interesting. Don't take that out of the question. It's kind of a young science. I don't want to say a science, but it's kind of a young treatment. So definitely give that a look-see if you're in the area, or if you're just, I don't know, looking for something different. Maybe nothing has worked for you in the past. This is an option. Alright, friends, I hope you enjoyed this self-help video. I'm sorry it lasted a very long time, but depression is a serious topic, and it is big. It is a major depression. It is a major problem in human beings as a whole. So, if you like this commentary, don't forget to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. Shadow Rockets out.